Imagine like an entire city, the homes, the businesses, the livestock.
Right, everything.
Yeah, everything. Even mountains of gold and silver, just all piled into a massive public square and burned to ash.
It's an incredible image.
And the most shocking part, this total destruction isn't, the work of an invading foreign army. It's actually executed by their own people.
Wow. Yeah, that changes the whole dynamic.
Exactly. I mean, when we think about defending a nation today, our minds naturally go to physical borders.
Right.
We think of radar systems, heavily guarded checkpoints, or maybe cybersecurity networks scanning the horizon for external threats.
Right, keeping the bad guys out.
Yeah, our entire defense posture is built around keeping the danger on the outside. But what happens when the most existential threat to a society's survival isn't like an army massing at the border, but an idea?
An internal contagion.
Precisely. What happens when the lethal danger is already inside the gates? May God bless your day and your entire week as we welcome you to this deep dive.
It's great to be here.
Today, we are opening up a really fascinating and, well, frankly, very intense piece of ancient jurisprudence. We're going to explore Deuteronomy chapter 13, and we're leaning on the incredibly detailed historical and theological notes from the Holman and NAA study Bibles.
Yeah, it is a remarkable piece of text, and as you hinted at, it carries a really profound gravity.
Really does.
When we read this chapter, we are looking at a society that is actively trying to manage its own ideological and spiritual survival in a very volatile ancient Near Eastern world.
The mission for you, our listener, is to really understand how ancient Israel dealt with what they considered the ultimate crime in their society.
Right, which was apostasy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we have to kind of set aside our modern Western idea of simply, changing religions.
Oh, absolutely. It's not about that at all.
Right, because this text outlines a rigorous, severe legal code designed to address three very distinct threat levels. You've got the public figure, the intimate relation, and the collective city.
And to really grasp the mechanics of this, we have to look at the text through the lens of ancient case law.
Okay.
The NAA Study Bible Notes point out that this is essentially ancient jurisprudence operating on a condition and response format.
So, like, if X happens, you must do Y.
Exactly. If a specific condition occurs, the community is legally bound to enact a specific response. But, the entire foundation of this legal code rests on understanding the nature of the crime itself.
Right, the treason aspect.
Yes. For ancient Israel, turning away to worship other gods was not a matter of personal religious liberty or just a philosophical disagreement. It was the highest form of treason.
Because of the covenant.
Right. They were bound in a covenant, a formal, binding political and spiritual treaty with the divine king who had literally rescued them from slavery in Egypt.
Okay, let's unpack this. The text begins with the first threat level, which we can call the public threat.
The false prophet.
Yeah. This involves the scenario of a prophet or a dreamer of dreams standing up in the community. And the setup here is actually wild to me.
How?
Well, because the text concedes that this prophet might actually perform a legitimate sign or a wonder, like a miracle actually happens.
Right. The text doesn't say it's just a cheap magic trick.
Exactly. But then, having successfully bent the laws of physics, this person uses their new platform to say, let's go follow other gods.
Yes, and the text specifically notes these are gods that the people have not known. They are totally outside of Israel's historical saving relationship.
If I'm putting myself in the shoes of an ancient Israelite, that scenario trips me up.
Sure, it's confusing.
Because, as modern readers, we're generally wired to think that if someone can do something seemingly supernatural, they must have divine backing.
Right, the miracle proves the messenger.
Exactly. Why would a sovereign, all-powerful God allow a hostile actor to successfully perform a wonder in the first place? Feels like, giving the enemy the microphone.
What's fascinating here is how the Holman Study Bible Notes address that exact paradox. We make the assumption that in the ancient world, a miracle automatically proved that someone spoke for God.
But that's not the case.
No, this text completely flips that script. The capacity to perform a miracle is secondary, and it doesn't automatically equal divine authority.
Wait, really?
Yeah. In fact, the Holman Notes explicitly mention that other spiritual entities, even Satan, can produce deceptive signs and wonders. The authenticity of the prophet is not determined by the spectacle.
Wow. So the sheer power to pull off the trick is not the metric for truth.
Exactly.
That brings to mind a modern analogy. Think about someone who approaches you and successfully guesses all your computer passwords, your exact bank balances, and, I don't know, your social security number.
Oh, that would be terrifying.
Right. And they do this to prove to you that they are a top-tier cybersecurity expert. You'd be blown away. They clearly have immense power and hidden knowledge.
You probably trust them initially.
Of course. But then they use that newly established trust to try and steal your identity and drain your accounts.
Ah, I see where you're going.
The impressive trick of guessing your passwords doesn't validate their ultimately destructive goal. Just because they have the power to do the trick doesn't mean you should follow their instructions.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. The false prophet uses the spectacle to bypass the community's critical thinking.
Yeah, they dazzle you so you don't look at the fine print.
Exactly. And that is why the message must validate the miracle, not the other way around. The message is the supreme test.
Right.
If the teaching contradicts the foundational truth of their society, that the Lord alone is God, then the miracle, no matter how spectacular, is completely irrelevant.
That answers the how, but it still leaves the why, like why allow it. The study notes mention that this whole scenario is actually a test of fidelity.
Yes. The Lord uses this scenario to test the loyalty of the people. It links right back to the famous Shema command found earlier in Deuteronomy.
The command to love God with all your heart.
Yes, all your heart and with all your soul. And in this ancient context, as the Holman Bible clarifies, to love God isn't just, a warm emotional feeling.
It's an action.
It means to fear him, to obey his commandments, and to remain politically and spiritually loyal to the covenant. The test proves where their true allegiance lies. Are they going to chase after the spectacular, or are they going to anchor themselves to the truth of their history?
And if this public figure fails the test and actively tries to lead people astray, the consequence laid out in the text is death.
The punishment is absolute. And again, viewing this through their societal structure is crucial. Leading the nation into apostasy breaks the very first commandment.
Right.
It is an act of high treason against their governing structure, but multiplied infinitely because it is treason against the King of Kings, the entity that literally gave them their national existence.
Which moves us from the public square directly into the home.
The private threat?
Yeah. If the first threat was an obvious public figure on a stage, the second threat is much more insidious. What happens when the deception doesn't come from a stranger with a microphone, but from someone you share a life with?
Right, the intimate betrayal.
The text specifically lists the closest possible human relationships. It says if your brother, the son of your mother, or your own son or daughter, or the beloved wife of your bosom, or a friend who is as your own soul.
Yeah, the closest bonds imaginable.
Exactly. It says if they secretly entice you to worship other gods, the law demands absolutely no pity, no yielding, and no concealment. You cannot hide them, and you cannot protect them.
It is a mandate of absolute zero tolerance, placed right into the vulnerable center of the family unit.
I have to speak for anyone listening right now and push back a little on how this lands today because this is a massive cultural shock.
It is deeply jarring to modern sensibilities.
Right. The text doesn't just say you had to report your loved one to the authorities. It says your hand must be the first to put them to death.
Yes, you have to initiate it.
How do the study Bibles explain a legal code demanding that someone execute their own sibling or spouse? It violates every biological protective instinct we possess as humans.
It is a deeply severe measure, and you are right to highlight how shocking it is. The study Bibles, they don't shy away from that gravity.
Okay.
According to the Holman Notes, the core principle being established here is one of ultimate priority. The text is forcing a hierarchy of loyalty.
Meaning God comes first above everything.
Exactly. Loyalty to God and the covenant is simply more important than loyalty to blood and family.
That is an incredibly heavy burden to place on a citizen.
It is the heaviest burden imaginable.
Yeah.
But the notes also remind us that this concept of ultimate loyalty superseding family ties isn't, just an isolated ancient Old Testament idea that faded away.
Really? Where else does it show up?
Well, Jesus later echoed this exact sentiment in the New Testament, stating that anyone who loves father or mother more than them is not worthy of him. The foundational covenant with the divine supersedes all horizontal human relationships.
I understand the theological priority, but to be the one to actually initiate the execution, to be
Right.
forced to throw the first stone at your own brother.
It's brutal.
It really is. That requires a completely different level of psychological involvement than just disagreeing with them.
It does, but this raises an important question about the practical mechanics of ancient law. That specific requirement, that the accuser's hand must be the first against the guilty party, serves a profoundly practical legal purpose.
Like what?
It is a massive deterrent against false accusations.
Oh, wow. Okay, that adds a whole new layer to it.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. If you have a land dispute with your brother, you can't just, anonymously report him to the elders, claim he's worshiping another god, and let the state take care of your problem.
Precisely. You cannot weaponize this law for personal gain or petty vengeance.
Because you'd have to actually kill him.
Yes. If you make the accusation, you have to look your family member in the eye and bear the ultimate physical and emotional trauma of carrying out the execution yourself.
That's intense.
The sheer psychological horror of having to personally execute a loved one meant that no one would ever invoke this law lightly. It ensured that the accusation was only made if the threat to the community was absolutely undeniably real.
The cost of faking an accusation is just too high to bear.
And the NLB notes add another vital piece to this puzzle. This extreme measure isn't just about retributive justice like punishing a wrong, it's fundamentally protective.
Protective? How so?
The ancient legal mind treats apostasy not just as a bad philosophical idea, but as a highly contagious disease.
Oh, the contagion model.
Yes. If you have a deadly, highly infectious plague breakout in a tightly packed camp, you don't debate it.
Right, you lock it down.
You isolate it and eliminate the vector immediately before it sweeps through and kills the entire population. The execution of the traitor is meant to purge the ideological evil from their midst, so that all Israel will hear of it and be afraid and, never again do such a wicked thing.
So what does this all mean when the containment protocols fail? That brings us perfectly to the third and final scenario in the text.
Right, the big one.
Yeah. If the ideological contagion isn't stopped at the individual level on the street or at the family level in the home, it spreads to the collective.
The societal threat. We move from the individual to entire cities.
The text introduces this nightmare scenario of a whole city being led astray. It specifically mentions a group of people driving this corruption. It calls them worthless or malignant men.
Depending on the translation, they are sometimes referred to as sons of Belial.
Sons of Belial. What does that mean exactly?
In this context, Belial represents worthlessness, lawlessness, or wickedness. These are base, corrupt leaders who intentionally go out and incite the inhabitants of their city to abandon their covenant and serve other gods.
If the contagion has infected an entire city, it creates a massive logistical and, moral problem for the nation.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, how does a society police an entire neighboring city without it instantly devolving into a chaotic civil war or just becoming a convenient excuse for one city to pillage the wealth of another?
That is the exact danger. And the NIAA notes highlight a crucial legal step mandated in the text to prevent that chaos. The law states that the community must inquire, investigate, and ask diligently.
So there's a protocol.
Yes. You cannot just amass an army and attack a neighboring city based on a rumor, a whisper, or hearsay.
There has to be a formal process.
Yes. The truth must be absolutely rigorously verified. It has to be established as an undeniable certainty that this abomination was committed and that the entire city has turned.
And that stops the fake wars.
Right. That requirement for diligent investigation acts as a legal firewall. It strictly prevents neighboring cities from using the charge of apostasy as a false pretext for invasion or theft.
Because if that formal investigation proves the rumors are true, the consequence is total, absolute destruction.
Complete devastation.
The text says the city must be struck with the edge of the sword, both its inhabitants and its animals. It is completely devoted to destruction.
This invokes the ancient Hebrew concept of harem, the ban, or the complete devotion of something to destruction. It removes the infected entity entirely from human use.
It makes me think of an absolute scorched earth protocol in modern computing.
How do you mean?
Imagine a massive corporate network, and one of the servers gets infected with a deeply embedded, highly aggressive ransomware.
Okay.
It's not just a virus in a single folder. It has corrupted the root directory and is actively trying to bring down the global system. You don't just go in and try to delete the bad file.
No, it's too risky.
Exactly. You don't try to salvage the corrupted hard drives and repurpose them. You have to physically destroy the drives and completely wipe the system to ensure the network survives.
You burn it all down.
The text says the infected city becomes a permanent heap of ruins, never to be rebuilt. You wipe the hard drive forever.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the NAA notes point out a profound shift in status. By turning to other gods, this apostate Israelite city has entirely lost its status as part of the covenant community.
They aren't Israelites anymore, legally speaking.
Right. Legally and spiritually, it is now treated exactly like a pagan Canaanite city. It becomes like Hazor or Gibeah historical cities that were utterly destroyed during the conquest of the land.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, specifically looking at the practical mechanics of this law.
Okay.
The text commands that all the plunder, like all the combined wealth of that destroyed city, must be gathered into the middle of the public square and burned entirely as a whole burnt offering to the Lord.
Every last piece of it must be consumed by fire.
And the NOA study notes provide a fascinating archaeological detail to help us visualize this.
The Beersheba excavation.
Yeah. They mention an excavated public square in the ancient city of Beersheba from the Iron Age II period. This specific square measured 216 square meters.
That is a massive civic space.
Right. The notes say it was capable of holding hundreds of people and tons of material. So picture the sheer scale of that.
It's hard to even imagine.
Mountains of clothing, furniture, gold, silver, livestock, family heirlooms, all of the accumulated wealth of an entire city pile into this huge 216 square meter plaza and completely set on fire.
It's a staggering, almost incomprehensible image to the modern mind.
Why destroy the gold? I mean, gold doesn't catch fire, it just melts, but why get rid of all that wealth?
It is staggering, but it is brilliantly designed from a legal and psychological standpoint. Think about baseline human nature.
Okay.
By requiring that absolutely no spoils be kept, that everything of value is turned to ash, the law ensures there is zero financial incentive to falsely accuse a wealthy neighboring city of apostasy.
Oh, because if you could keep the gold, you'd have like a Salem witch trial situation on a municipal scale.
Exactly.
People would accuse their neighbors just to take your land and their wealth. But here, even if you win the battle, you walk away with absolutely nothing.
Israel was strictly forbidden from enriching themselves off of this judgment. It had to be a pure, uncompromised act of purging the evil and offering to God, not a military raid for profit.
That makes perfect sense.
And the notes remind us that there is a famous historical precedent for this in their own texts.
The story of Achan. Yeah.
Exactly. Achan was a man who secretly kept plunder from the conquered city of Jericho, defying the law of Haram.
He hid it in his tent.
Yes. And according to their history, that single act of keeping cursed wealth brought military disaster and judgment down on the entire nation. So, if the Israelites kept the plunder from this apostate city, it would prove their motives were corrupt.
They would become the very contagion they were trying to destroy.
It functions as a foolproof systemic defense against greed-driven holy wars. You only go through with this terrifying, exhausting, and traumatic process if the threat of the ideological contagion is absolutely real and verifiable.
You only do it to survive.
Because it costs the community everything: military effort, emotional trauma, the loss of a whole city, and it pays them absolutely nothing in return.
So, pulling all this together, we've tracked this threat from the false prophet standing on the street corner to the beloved family member whispering secrets at the dinner table, all the way to an entire city corrupted by malignant leaders.
A comprehensive threat matrix.
Right. Deuteronomy 13 presents an incredibly rigorous, unyielding legal framework. It was designed to fiercely protect the ideological and spiritual borders of ancient Israel from the deadly contagion of apostasy.
For ancient Israel, this was not, a theoretical debate. It was a matter of sheer survival.
Life or death.
Absolutely. They believed fundamentally that to lose their covenant with God was to lose their very existence as a people. If the core idea fell, the nation fell.
Which brings us right back to where we started today. We talked about defending borders, about cybersecurity networks, and scorched earth containment protocols.
Right.
We like to think we are entirely removed from the harshness of the ancient world. But the core tension of how a society preserves its identity remains.
And that leaves us with something really profound to consider as we close.
What's that?
Well, if ancient Israel believed the ideological integrity of their community required such extreme, absolute, and costly measures to prevent an